If you've been opening Canva and starting from a blank page every single time you want to post something, today we're fixing that because you'll learn how to create templates in Canva. I'm going to show you how to build a proper template library from scratch, how to use it so that content creation actually becomes fast, and how to turn those same templates into a digital product that you can sell. So this is your Canva 101 tutorial for beginners. I'm Natalia and I help creators like you turn content into income, freedom, and a brand you're proud of. So let's do this. Now, the reason templates are such a foundational part of the content creation system is that they solve two of the biggest problems that I hear from small business owners and creators over and over again, literally all the time, which is spending way too long on a single post, individual piece of content like a carousel or a post or a reel, and then falling off posting regularly because the process is just too hard to stick to and it takes a very long time. Now, when you have a solid template library with your brand colors, with your fonts and layouts are already sorted, you don't actually have to reinvent the wheel and make design decisions every single time you sit down to create, and you can just focus on the actual message that you want to share. So this is super important. Now, having a bunch of your own preset templates can really make your content creation easier and much faster. And for those of you who want a little extra incentive to build this out properly, the templates you create can then become digital products that you sell, so you can actually create income from the designs that you make for your own content. Now, I would start with a brand kit because this is the foundation of every template you're going to create. So this is where we will start. It lives in your Canva account under brand on the left side panel, and this is where you upload your logos, set your brand colors, and choose your brand fonts, apart from, of course, adding all the other details as well. And when everything is in your brand kit, you can easily just pull from it inside the editor, so your palette is always there. It's always, at the top of your color picker. You can easily change the fonts, which means you're never hunting for the right hex code or trying to remember which font you used the last time. And if you're creating templates to sell, I believe that setting this up can be super helpful too, because it makes the process much smoother. So if you, say, are creating template packs, it's great to have them all follow the same guidelines. So as a quick note, the brand kit is a Canva Pro feature. So if you want to try it out, set some up for your own brand, make sure to claim your free trial for 30 days of Pro. You can grab the link in the description down below. So we're on the Canva homepage, and to find your brand kit and set it up properly, all you have to do is to jump to the brand tab to the left in here, and that's going to open up new kind of brand kits in here. Of course, if you don't have it populated, you'll be prompted to create a new brand kit. What you can also do if you have it created is to just go ahead and hit create new brand kit, and that's going to do it for you. So from here, I can just do a test one for you. I can click create, and from here, you can see that you've got all the different types of assets that you can add for your own particular brand kit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit colors first because that's going to be the most useful for our templates. So I can just keep clicking in here to add new colors. And then from here, if you just kind of keep adding different colors, you can change the head codes. You can also specify different gradients in here as well, which is really useful if you want to, of course, create them and save them very easily. So this is my color palette sorted. From here, I can easily jump into fonts and pick something. Now, you don't have to populate all of them. All you have to do is to select one or two if you've got them specifically for your brand, and that you can put in here easily too. So once I click on it, you can see that I can choose a font from here. Now, let's say my main one is going to be Times New Roman condensed but in bold, and I can specify how big my font is from here. So I'll go for something like 64 in here. And what I love to do when I set up my brand kits is to actually go ahead and name it by the specific name of the font, because sometimes you just forget what the specific heading was for. So I prefer to use these for the names of my my fonts in here. So it's super easy to do, and then you can just save it like this. That's the one that I want to use in here. And then what I need to do next, of course, is to add any of my logos and photos and components, anything like that. But for the sake of this video and for the brevity of it, I just want you to see how easy it is to then create those templates using the Canva Brand Kit. All right, we're going to be designing a carousel post today, but remember, you can actually create templates for whatever you need to produce in your business regularly. So it's not just for social media content. It could be docs and stuff like that as well. And even if you start with 2 or 3 templates templates to begin with, you're actually covering a very useful chunk of your regular content creation as well. Now, the thing that I always like to include in every template that you create is your handle, because when people see your content and possibly share it too, your name then travels with it. All right, we're ready to design our first template. I'm on the Canva homepage again, and from here, what I want to choose is the Instagram size for this because it's going to be an Instagram carousel. Again, anything you create, you can probably find within Canva in terms of the dimensions that you need. So by all means, jump into kind of any of the social media sizes in here and you'll be able to find it. Now, I'm looking specifically for an Instagram post that's 3:4 in the ratio. So I'm going to go ahead and go for Instagram. And that's going to give me the Instagram post 3:4, which is 1080 by 1440 pixels. Now, the reason you can find it is because it's kind of not that recently, but more of a recent update. And I don't feel like the filters are picking it up very easily under the kind of Instagram tab in here. But if you search for it, you'll find it. So I go for Instagram. And again, this is the Instagram post size that I want. Once you click on it, that's going to take you straight into the editor in here. And now, as you can see, as a little kind of sneak peek in here, when you're in the templates tab, because that's something that's usually kind of pulled up very quickly at the beginning, you'll see all your different kind of brand templates that you've saved for yourself before. And you can see in here that this is my kind of one of my older carousel templates that I've got for myself. Kind of another one and another one. So I've got plenty of different brand assets that I could start designing with straight from the get-go. However, again, today it's all about creating it from scratch. So I'm going to start with this little panel in here. And what I want to do is to create a little kind of grid of colors in the background. So I'm going to go to the elements and use something a little bit more fun. I love using grids in here for this. So I can choose and specify however many kind of different grid styles I want. And maybe I will use something like this, maybe just to add, I think that it's got 4, so I think I want to go for something a little bit more dense in here. Okay, I think this one has 7. I want an odd number, so I've just given it at the top, and now I realize you can't really see it. I mean, you would be able to just because there are tiny little breaks in between those, and that's going to give you an indication of what that is. But of course, if you click on it, you'll see kind of that there are different panels in here. And as you can see, what I love about grids is that they are actually just completely movable, so I would be able to just adjust it to the panel that I want to. So instead of like putting up all the different rectangles, this is an easy tip to add my rectangles very easily this way. So I'll keep adding my colors. Now, if I click in here, you can see my color palette is already here because this is my brand kit that we've just created very easily before. Now, what I want to do is to just differentiate between these kind of blue and light beige ones. And that's the reason why I went for an odd number of panels in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this one as the overlay, as the kind of the background color in here. Now, as you can see, I kind of like this style actually with the little white kind of white spaces in between, but I don't want these. So what you can do, select your whole grid, go to spacing at the top in here, and from here you can actually adjust your grid spacing so you can make it as thick or as invisible as you'd like. And I want it to be invisible for this particular grid in here. Next, what I want to do is to add a little rectangle in here. So all I have to do is to click R, and that's going to give me a rectangle very easily. However, you can of course jump into elements and then shapes, and you're going to see a wide variety of different shapes that could work for your particular design. And there are different ones in here that you could use that work very beautifully in here. However, I'm going to just stick to something very simple like this one, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that corner rounding in here just to make it a little bit more kind of flowy and polished. And I'm going to stretch it out like this just to form that base of my design, and then I can change the color in here as well. Now, I've not added a lighter one than my color in here, and I don't want to use pure white just because I want something a little bit more kind of muted in here. So I can go ahead and choose something a little bit lighter like this, maybe almost like an ecru one in here. And of course, I could just copy that hex code and add it to my brand kit, but I'm going to stick with this one for this particular design. Now I'm going to just drag just to make sure that it's perfectly positioned in the center. So this is an easy way for me to create that beautiful overlay. And now another thing that happened very recently to our shapes is that we can now add different shadows and kind of effects in here. So if you select your rectangle or any other shape, go to effects at the top, you'll be able to add kind of shapes and, different styles in here. So if I wanted to, I can add a little bit of that kind of glowy effect just to make sure that I'm kind of making it stand out from the background ever so slightly. And I actually want to use kind of an off blue black color, not necessarily fully black, but just something a little bit off blue. And I can change that intensity in here, and you can see that it adds a bit of that depth into my design very easily. Now, because I want this one to be quite tactile, I want to also add a little bit of a paper texture to my background. So what I'm going to go and do is to go to elements and then say paper texture in here, and that's going to pull up so many different kind of graphics and photos in here that I can use as an overlay. Now, the reason I want to jump into graphics is because I want my texture to be transparent. We don't have any kind of blend modes in here, so what I could do is to just add that little texture on top in here, but you can see that there are different ones that I could be using. I kind of like this one. I like it a lot, actually. It gives enough of that texture without changing the colors that much, and I'm going to just push it further to the back. So you can see that if I jump to position at the top and make it appear in the background, I can separate it even more from my kind of main shape in here, and that's going to give us a little bit more of that depth, but I don't want it to be necessarily as harsh. So you can see if I go to transparency, I can take it all the way from here to 100%. So I'm going to go to something around maybe 70-ish, 75. So it just takes a little bit of that edge off, but that's giving us a beautiful base to work with. Next, I want to add some text to my template. So I'm going to go ahead and click on text, and from here again underneath my specific brand kit, you can see the ones that we've previewed in here, and this is the reason why I wanted this to not say heading or subheading. I wanted it to say the specific name of the font when I was setting up the brand kit because it makes things so much easier. So I'm just going to click on it, and that's going to add my text on top. Now, what I want to do first and foremost, because that's always happens with any of our kind of headings or text boxes, is that very often these will have too much of the spacing in between the lines to look natural. It's very hard to read in this way. By the way, I highly recommend you check out this video because it's going to get you through some of the principles of designing while also creating something from scratch within Canva. So it's a great watch to put on your list next or watch right after this video. So this is going to give you some tips like this. And now what I want to do is to go to the advanced settings in here and adjust the line spacing to something around, I like a neater one. I like a tighter one. So I'm going to go for 1:1. You can see that it actually kind of changed it. So I'm going to show you what it looked like. So that was 1.4. And again, you can go for something 1.15. You can go for maybe just 1. I like it very narrow. Again, you don't have to. Something like 1.25 would be pretty good, but I'll go for maybe 1.15 for this one because I feel like this gives us enough of that kind of breathing space in between the lines, but not too much to make the text feel disjointed. Now again, for this text, what I want to do is to use my color palette. So again, we're not using kind of full black in here, but we're using this off black color. So I'm going to select all of them and click this one, and you can see that it's already a little bit more muted, and this is what we want for this particular design. Now I'm going to say how to create templates in Canva. That's going to be my main text. And of course, I feel like I still have a bit more to give in terms of that spacing. So I would make it a little less pronounced, so a little bit more narrow. I think I could even go a little lower. Like I'm very sorry. I'm really, really weird when it comes to my spacing. So I prefer it really narrow. So I'm going to go for something like this in here. And that gives me my main text for this carousel in here. And then I'm going to start with a second text piece. So I can go ahead and add my body text in here just like this. And from here, what I want to add first, something that I always love to include is our Instagram handle or any other social media handles. Now, the reason I like to add it is because if someone sees it, they immediately see who created this particular carousel. Apart from this also, when they screenshot, reminds them of, again, where that screenshot came from. When they share it to someone, this name also travels with you, not relying necessarily only on the kind of the handles of the platforms, because sometimes if someone like repins it on Pinterest, for example, that may not necessarily show where it's been coming from. So this is why I always prefer to use this handle, just to make sure that we're showing our branding within the template as well. So again, I'm going to make this one a little bigger, and I'm going to say Natalia Kalinska. And I think I can stylize it to make it all caps, just like this. I think it would work better. And maybe because we've got this kind of font family, I can make this one lighter, just to make sure that this is not kind of overpowering the rest of the text. So I can make it now kind of slower in here, and I'm going to pop it in here. But of course, once we have more of that text on top of our template, we can reposition it easily. Next, I want to add another piece of text. I'm going to go to the text panel again, or I can just click T if I wanted to. And again, select my body text from here. Of course, I need to make this one a little bit bigger, and I'm going to just select a placeholder that I have for this particular text in here. I also want to add a little arrow in here, just to encourage people to swipe. That also subconsciously reinforces the idea that this could potentially be a carousel as opposed to just a regular post. So maybe let's try this one. Let's see if this is something that could work in here. Yeah, I can use this one. And again, use this dark gray brown from my template. Now I'm thinking at this point just to add a little bit more of that fun texture in here. I'm going to add another rectangle. So I just hit R, and that added a rectangle to the top. I'm just going to bring it to the top in here for the time that I'm designing, just so that I can match it. Now from here, I'm going to change the corner rounding. Now I'm going to go 65 in here, just because I love a round number or a very straight number, so I'm going to go for 60 or 65 every single time I have to. Now I'm going to kind of stretch it out like this, and what I want to do next is to actually add a dashed line just like this, and then you can change the stroke weight. So just like that, maybe something like 4 would work for me in here. And I'm going to change the color to kind of this off black color, but I would probably make it less visible. So I'll see how it works. And then from here is to then choose no color for the fill. So you can see that this is the fill for our stroke, and this is the fill for our main color. And I'm going to just select no fill. So I could have something like this. I think it looks pretty cool. So what I'm going to do next is to actually, again, reposition it to the back so that these two elements are together, and I'm going to group them so that every time I go ahead and reposition it, it all kind of works together. Now let me reposition it, let me shape it. So I'm gonna balance the whole design ever so slightly just so that it matches the vibe. I'm gonna make sure that it's in the center just like that, and then I'm gonna drag through the sides just like that so that I have enough space. I think these two could potentially maybe be lower just like that to have a little bit of that separation between them. Now from here, what I'm going to do next is to go to the elements and choose some of the shapes in here. Now again, I've used different shapes in here previously, so I could use maybe something like this in here. This is something that I use quite a lot. Let's see the star in here. Maybe something like that could work. So I'm going to go for something like this in here and add a little save it call out, just because I want to increase the savability factor in here. And I'm going to make this one black, so I'm going for the full boldness in here. And of course, I need to change the color to my color like this. And at any point, of course, I need to make sure that this is kind of nicely balanced like that. So this is what I'm going to add. And now, of course, I'm going to change the color of it to this one just to make sure that it stands out from the background and that we've got enough space to kind of work with it. So I could do something like this in here very easily. Just pop it at the top, and that's going to act as our little kind of save it element. And I could maybe add a bit of a stroke to it, just like that, just so that it has enough of that separation from the background. And something that bugs me ever so slightly is that we have this little very weird gap in between here. So of course I need to position it. Another thing I want to do is to add a little bit of an element to balance my design in here. So I'm going to go for camera in here, and let's see in the graphics if there's something that I want to use. I want to use that kind of collage style camera. Maybe something like this gives a bit of a vintage vibe, especially with the kind of background that we've got in here. So I could use something something like this as well. Okay, let's say I'm happy with this base. What I'm going to do next is to just duplicate that page and then start creating the bases for the rest of my design. So now I'm going to remove all the extras from here, and now I'm going to make everything aligned to the left because I want it to be kind of easily readable in here. And then I'm going to go back to stretching it all the way because usually the other pages are not showing up on the Explorer page. So I don't have to worry about the balance. I can have a lot more space within my design for the secondary and kind of further slides as well. Okay, so for this one, I've said your own custom template library and equals faster content. Since every design already has your layout, colors, and fonts in place, you can just focus on the message. And now I can add more collage style stuff. So I can, again, look it up in the Elements tab, and whether I want, these arrows in here or another camera or something else, whatever your vibe goes for, you can create something. I'm talking about time, so I can use something like this in here very easily and just add it on top just to kind of add a bit more of that visual interest very easily to my design. And again, very simple. I'm duplicating and then deleting and then creating more of those slides. So I'm going to finish the rest of the slides and show you what I've done. So this is my finished design. What I've got in here is enough variety. So I've got my first hook carousel slide, then I've got the secondary hook carousel slide, then I have kind of the value post, so you can see that I have variety in that regard. And of course, at the end, I have my call to action one, and this is very specific to kind of what I've got. Of course, I've created a little overlay in here, so it creates a bit of that separation underneath. So let me just show you very quickly what happens when I pop a little thumbnail in here. So I'll go to my projects and search for thumbnails because I have a specific dedicated folders for my thumbnails. And from here, you can see maybe this one, I'll just pop it on top in here. And you can see that it creates enough of that edge. Of course, I could create other ones like listicle posts and things like that, so that all creates the basis of my content creation. And again, when I was talking about creating this library of content for yourself, a library of branded templates, this makes content creation so much easier. And of course, next, you need to know how to export and share your Canva templates. So pay very close attention here because this is important. There are a few ways in which templates are shared and saved, and these are often confused. Now, first, if you want to save it as a brand template, so in your own account for your own use, you have to be on Pro, and you'll find this under the Share tab. When you save it this way, it becomes a reusable design, and every time you click to use it, it's going to create a copy so that your main file, so again, your brand template, is then protected. You can then easily change the text, you can change like the placements and the fonts and the elements, basically the whole design, and still have that original brand template to use again later. You can also save your brand template to a specific folder, which is super helpful if you work with different clients, maybe different brands, or just simply different brand kits. Keeping your Canva organized is super important. I'm so passionate about it because it can actually become so chaotic so quickly. So watch this video next to make sure you've got the basics covered from the get-go. So let me show you how you can actually save this as your brand template. Now, something that I always do first and foremost, and I've not done in this particular one, is that I always jump and name my design. And this is very important because we want all of our branded templates to also be named properly. So let me call it a striped Instagram carousel brand template, just so I know exactly what it is. And then when I search for it, I can very easily pull it up using the keywords. So from here, what you want to do to save it as a brand template is to jump to the share button here at the top. And from here, you should be able to see the brand template option in here. Otherwise, go to see all in here, and then you can just look it up from here. So what I'm going to do next is to go to brand template. And from here, that's going to give you the option to share with a specific team and then move to a specific folder. Now, I have everything foldered in a way that I actually have every type of design that I create. So not necessarily just kind of the time of it. I actually have like an Instagram folder, and then within it, I have the type of the design. So I've got carousels, so I can very easily move it and add it in there. What that's going to do is that it's going to create that beautiful kind of brand template for me. And not only is it easy for me to access it from my brand kit and any other place in here, I can actually actually very easily then find it within my carousels folder. So for example, if I know I'll be batching some carousels for the future, I can jump into that folder and use this from there. By the way, I cover more of these tips in this video, so go watch it. This is definitely one that you have to see if you want your Canva not to be a mess and be very nicely organized. Now, when you click on a save template, Canva gives you two options. Now, first is use a template. It creates, again, a new working copy and your original stays completely untouched, so your library never gets overwritten by accident. And then you can edit the original. This is what you use when you want to update the base template itself. Maybe you have refreshed your brand colors or, changed fonts or added a new logo. Any future copies you make from that template would then reflect those changes automatically. So then when I sit down for a content batch session, I can just go straight to my template, pull the formats that I need for that week, and focus entirely on the content itself, drafting that message, changing the copy, but the bulk of the design is already done. And that is exactly the point. Now, from here, how you use this template is to go and literally hit use this brand template. If at any point you feel like you need to edit it, you go to the three dots in here and then you go edit brand template, and that's going to change the original for you. So of course, use it sparingly. Now, if you go to the homepage or to the projects, I don't necessarily use the homepage other than using the tutorials in here, but you can see that it's marked as a brand template. So again, if I clicked on it, every time I'm going to be taken into this view. So again, same button in here to use this brand template. And now once I click on it, you can see that it doesn't create, the same template. It creates a copy of it. So you can see at the top, I have all my pages the way they were laid out. Now from here, I can of course change anything I want. So I can say this is a copy of my brand template. So just like that, I can just very easily adjust it and kind of keep changing it. I can keep changing the visuals from here. I can even change the colors underneath if I wanted to. So remember when I've added this overlay, of course, I need to kind of change this overlay to be able to access the bottom ones. But I could go and create this more kind of beigey camel monotone one. And I could go ahead and change this one to kind of blue. And you can see that already that same template became something completely different, right? So this is very easy to achieve with your copy. This is what the copy looks like. And then we've got this Instagram. So if I click on it and reopen it again, you can see that it's actually the changed one. It's just, again, it takes a little bit of time for cache to kind of load up. And next we have a public view link and a template link. Now, these two are completely different and they're so often confused, especially if you throw in a brand template to the mix. So it's really worth understanding clearly which one does what. So again, we've covered a brand template link, which, just to repeat, is your own brand template in your account, which you can share with your team members and is used internally to create more designs from it. Now, a public view link lets everyone see your design, everyone who has the link, of course, but they cannot edit or they cannot copy it to their own, which makes it really useful for sharing designs maybe with a client for approval and maybe sharing guides, sharing slide decks, or any other design that you want people to see but not access or change otherwise. In contrast, a template link is what you use when you actually want someone to be able to use and iterate on your work, because when they click it, they get a fresh copy of your design in their own Canva account and they're not touching your original at all. So if you're selling Canva templates, this is exactly the option you want. Now, apart from this, if you're selling templates as a digital product, the standard delivery method is to put your template links into a well-designed, beautiful PDF, and that is what your customer receives. They then open the PDF, they click on the links, which are template links, and each opens up, again, a fresh copy of your template in their Canva account, and they're then ready to customize. Now, creating template links is a paid Canva feature, meaning if you're on a free plan, you can no longer generate new template links. You need Canva Pro or another paid plan from Canva to do this. So if you're planning to sell templates or share them with an audience, that is really important to know. And as for your buyers and the people receiving your templates, if they're on a free Canva account and their email is on a different domain from yours, like a personal Gmail, for example, they can still absolutely open and use your template without any links and issues or a paid plan. However, there is a restriction which applies when someone is on the free account under the same business domain as you, which is more of a team or an organization scenario, I would say, than like a typical customer situation, right? So this means that in order to use your template link, they'd have to be on a business account with you or have pro themselves. But again, for regular customers not on the same domain as you, it's absolutely fine. And by domain, I don't mean generic domains like Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, etc., but rather private domains. So say my Canva account is under x@nataliakalinska.com. I then create a template, I share it, and then my colleague under hey@nataliakalinska.com would have to be on pro or in business to use it. But someone with gmail.com one would be free to use it with no issues. I hope it explains it clearly because it sometimes can be a bit of a pain to understand all of those things, but this is super important for you to be clear on. Now, one more thing to keep in mind, if your template uses pro elements like premium photos or graphics, free users will see watermarks on those when they go to download them. So if you're designing templates to sell to a broad audience, it is very much worth keeping your designs to free elements where possible. So just to jump quickly and to show you exactly what I'm talking about, when you go to share in here and see all, then you see the brand template option, the public view link, then you see the template link. So again, this can be very confusing as to what all three of these do. So hopefully my explanation showed you exactly what I'm talking about and what each of them are. However, I know a lot of our visual learners, so I want to show you what that means. So again, brand template saves it as our own kind of asset, our own branded template within our account, so we can make copies and iterations of the same design while protecting the original. So this is what we've done before. Then we have the public view link. So again, for anyone to be able to see it, to view it, but not change it or not copy it to their own account in any way. And then we have the template link, which is the template link that you would be using to then give it to other people. So again, if you want to share that template as a template for others, whether by selling it or by giving it away for free, this is the template link that you would create and then copy that link and give it away to the others. So these are the three options for the sharing in that regard. However, of course, there are other ways to share. You can use the share button to give people access to change and customize that access as well. So there are different ways to do it. However, these are the three main ones that really throw people off when they don't know what the differences are. Now, Canva templates are one of the most popular digital products of all time, and Canva makes it very, very practical to create them for sale. The most common places to sell are Etsy, which already, has a massive built-in audience searching and primed for looking specifically for Canva templates. And then we have Gumroad, which is also a very straightforward setup, and they have really good margins as well. You can also sell directly from your own website through your email list, or you can use some free templates as a lead magnet maybe to grow your list and then say offer a full template pack as a paid product. Like, the possibilities are endless. It really depends on how you tailor it. Before you set up shop though, there's something worth being really, really clear on. Canva's guidelines say that you cannot sell templates that are just slightly tweaked versions of Canva's own pre-made designs. It's always best to start from a blank canvas and create something original. I would always encourage that. And the free elements, the photos and fonts inside Canva are licensed for commercial use, so you can absolutely include them in your templates that you sell. And if you want to use pro elements, again, you need a Canva Pro account, which, as we've covered, is now a requirement for creating the template links anyway. And remember, I'm not a lawyer, so I will leave the Canvas content license agreement linked in the description so you can read it through properly before you launch anything. And if today's video has you thinking like bigger about maybe building something, building a proper income from Canva, make sure you watch my video on making money with Canva in here, because we've got a lot to cover in there. There's a lot more in-depth knowledge on the whole side of things there. I'd love to know if you're building a Canva template library to speed your own content creation, or are you thinking about turning this into a digital product that you can sell? Drop it in the comments. I'm really curious where you're at in the process. And if you found it helpful, leave a like. It really helps me bring more content to you. So subscribe. Don't miss what's coming up next. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.